It was a seemingly ordinary night in the small town of Clayton, New York, when a chilling 911 call shattered the silence. A husband claimed he had just come home to find his wife brutally murdered. But as investigators peeled back the layers of the case, they discovered a web of lies, betrayal, and a sinister murder-for-hire plot. This is the tragic case of Kelley Clayton. Hey, true crime fans, I'm Eamon, and I'm thrilled to share crime tales across times with you. Each episode will explore a new case, examining the evidence and discussing the twists and turns. My goal is to create a community where we can discuss these cases, share our thoughts, and learn from each other. So, let's get started. It was a quiet night in the Clayton household. Kelley had put her 2 young children, Charlie and Cullen, to bed, expecting another normal evening. At around midnight, someone entered the Clayton home through an unlocked door. Kelley was in the master bedroom, likely getting ready for bed when she heard a noise. Before she could react, he attacked her viciously with a metal object, later believed to be a pipe or a baseball bat. She fought for her life. Blood was splattered across the walls as she struggled, trying to escape the brutal beating. He dragged her across the floor, leaving a horrifying trail of blood in their once happy home. The most chilling part? Her daughter, Charlie, witnessed it all. Charlie was awakened by the sounds of her mother's screams. Peeking from her room, she saw a masked intruder beating her mother to death. Despite her injuries, Kelley managed to utter one final heartbreaking plea to her daughter: "Go back to bed, baby." But it was too late. Within minutes, Kelley succumbed to her injuries, leaving behind her 2 terrified children. After ensuring Kelley was dead, he fled the scene. He did it perfectly, except for one major mistake. He left the children alive. Kelley Stage, Clayton was a beautiful, lively, and caring woman who had once worked as a model in Las Vegas. She had a warm personality, loved children, and was known for her infectious energy. She met Thomas Clayton in Las Vegas while he was playing professional hockey. The 2 quickly fell in love, and after getting married, they settled in Canton, New York, where they built what seemed like an ideal life. They had 2 children, Charlie and Cullen, and Kelley embraced her role as a devoted mother. She spent her days taking care of the kids, decorating their home, and making sure her family was happy. However, their marriage was far from perfect. Thomas Clayton had a dark side. While Kelley was focused on their home and children, Thomas was focused on himself. He was arrogant, self-centered, and reckless with money. His business dealings were shady, and his personal life was just as unstable. He cheated on Kelley multiple times, often bragging about his affairs to his friends. Despite his charming exterior, many saw through his deception, describing him as someone who thought he could outsmart anyone. Kelley knew about his affairs and grew increasingly unhappy in their marriage. At times, she confided in friends that she was considering divorce. But with 2 young children, she hesitated. At around 12:30 a.m., Thomas returned home from his poker game. He was clueless about what had happened. The moment he stepped inside, he called 911 in shock and panic. "Oh my God, my wife is dead. There's blood everywhere." When authorities arrived, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. Blood was splattered across the walls and floors, showing clear signs of a violent struggle. Thomas Clayton, the husband, had been the one to call 911, claiming he had just walked in and found his wife dead, but something immediately seemed off to the investigators. The first red flag for investigators was Thomas Clayton's behavior. Most people who discover their spouse brutally murdered would be in complete shock, crying, hyperventilating, or unable to process what just happened. But Thomas was different. He was oddly composed, answering questions with a calm demeanor. To some officers, it almost seemed like he was performing, exaggerating his shock rather than experiencing genuine grief. Another strange thing, he never once asked if his children were okay. When officers arrived, his 2 young children, Charlie and Cullen, were still inside the house. One of them had even witnessed the horrific attack. But Thomas never rushed to hold them, never demanded to see them. Instead, his focus remained on repeating his alibi, making sure officers knew he had been at a poker game that night. The second major red flag was the crime scene itself. Typically, in a home invasion, there are signs of forced entry, broken windows, pried open doors, or at least some evidence of a struggle near the entry points. But in the Clayton home, there was none of that. The door wasn't forced open. Nothing appeared to be stolen. The house wasn't ransacked. Whoever committed this murder wasn't there to rob the house. They were there for one reason only: to kill Kelley. To detectives, this suggested that the attacker had inside knowledge. They knew the layout of the home. They knew how to get in without raising suspicion. And perhaps most chillingly, they knew Kelley would be alone. Then, investigators spoke to Kelley Clayton, the couple's 7-year-old daughter, who had witnessed the attack. Charlie was terrified but managed to provide a chilling piece of evidence that would blow the case wide open. She told investigators that she had seen a masked man in the bedroom attacking her mother. He was hitting her repeatedly with a metal object, which she believed was a hockey stick. And then she made a statement that sent chills down the detectives' spines. He had Daddy's eyes. Charlie's words were subtle yet powerful. She wasn't saying that her father had attacked her mother, but she was saying that the killer's eyes looked familiar, like her father's. This statement immediately shifted suspicion onto Thomas Clayton. With Thomas Clayton now a prime suspect, detectives turned their attention to his financial situation. What they found made him look even guiltier. On the surface, Thomas appeared to be doing well. He owned a home renovation business, had a nice house, and was well connected in the community. But beneath that facade, his financial situation was falling apart. His business wasn't bringing in as much money as he claimed. He was drowning in debt. Even worse, his marriage was in shambles. Kelley was growing tired of his infidelities and reckless spending. She had confided in friends that she was considering divorce. And for Thomas, divorce wasn't an option. If Kelley left him, he would lose everything: the house, custody of the kids, and financial stability. That's when he came up with a sinister plan. Instead of going through a messy divorce, he realized there was another way to rid himself of Kelley, one that would leave him not only free but also rich. A year before the murder, Thomas had doubled Kelley's life insurance policy from $500,000 to $1 million. If Kelley were to die, Thomas would walk away with a massive payout, more than enough to erase his financial troubles. This was no coincidence. Investigators now believe Thomas had been planning Kelley's murder for at least a year. But there was still one big question. If Thomas didn't kill Kelley himself, then who did? Detectives went through Thomas's phone records, looking for any suspicious calls in the days and weeks leading up to the murder. One number stood out. It belonged to Michael Beard, a former employee of Thomas's home renovation business. Beard had been fired months earlier, and sources said he was struggling financially. He was desperate for cash, and Thomas knew it. When detectives brought Beard in for questioning, he initially denied everything. He claimed he had nothing to do with the murder, but investigators weren't convinced. They kept pressing, presenting him with evidence. Phone records showed multiple calls between him and Thomas in the days leading up to the murder. Even more damning, records showed that Thomas had withdrawn cash from his bank account just before the crime, matching the amount he had promised Beard. Finally, Beard cracked. He confessed that Thomas had hired him to kill Kelley for $10,000. Thomas had given him a key to the house so that he could enter without force. The plan was simple: make it look like a break-in gone wrong. But Beard made one critical mistake. He left the children alive. This mistake would ultimately lead to his downfall and expose Thomas Clayton as the mastermind behind the horrific crime. Justice is served. With mounting evidence, Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard were arrested. Their trials were intense, filled with shocking testimony and incriminating details. Michael Beard was convicted of first-degree murder in 2016 and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Mark Blanford, an accomplice who helped Beard, was sentenced to 3 to 6 years in prison. He was released in 2020 but rearrested in 2024 for violating parole. Thomas Clayton, despite maintaining his innocence, was convicted in 2017 for orchestrating his wife's murder. He is now serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think Thomas Clayton's motive was purely financial, or was there something deeper driving his actions? Let's discuss in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more shocking true crime stories from around the world. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant. This is Crime Tales Across Times, signing off.